Do you know how tiring it is to be right, chat? Do you know how difficult it is to be right all the time? Because you're going to upset a lot of individuals. There are individuals who prefers that you're wrong or prefers that you shut up. And they slip into your DMs and they start to whine like little babies and they say, "Oh, I'm unsubscribing, V, because you're a bad movie critic. You are obsessed with wokeness. You are obsessed with politics and you just can't give an accurate review anymore." And to those people I say, why don't you go into the DM of the showrunner of the fucking show House of Dragon and you tell him that? You tell the showrunner who recently came out and said that he injected left-wing American politics into the first episode of the show, and you tell him that he is wrong. You go and tell, no, you are obsessed by politics, Mr. Showrunner. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, surely at some level, these people must understand that it is not my fault for calling a spade a spade. Surely at some level, they must realize that I don't shape reality. I do not create these shows, but I have been doing this for the last couple of years and I provide accurate criticisms. If I see that something is woke, I call it. Now, you can make the argument that there is an acceptable level of wokeness, which, according to you, makes the show still enjoyable. Like, that's a fine criticism. I understand that. You can say you don't care about wokeness. That's a fine criticism. I understand that as well. But don't tell me it's not woke when the showrunner himself says that this was about Roe v. Wade. Yeah, I'm sure this is going to age really great in 10 or 20 years, right? People will still remember what the fuck he's talking about. People from other countries really give a shit about Roe v. Wade. Do you know that other nations around the world do not have abortions codified in their constitutions? Oh my fucking god. I don't think a single European country has it. I might be wrong. Feel free to call me out on it in the comment section. But for some reason, the world goes on, you know? So, I wouldn't even have guessed it, but apparently, if it wasn't for Roe v. Wade, we wouldn't have got this beautiful episode. So maybe, if you're an American, you should call your Supreme Court Justice and thank him for his service. You should thank him for his stunning, for his bravery, because without him, you wouldn't get this very beautiful cinematic moment. I mean, they made the liberals suffer, and we know that artists create art that's really good when they're suffering. Just look at the communists. So yes, like, thank you, Supreme Court Justice, for abolishing Roe v. Wade, because now we get to see this brilliant episode, which, again, many people were upset that I was criticizing. And it wasn't even like a bad criticism, because I still said it's watchable, it's serviceable, it's no Game of Thrones like the previous season, so far at least. Could have been written better. I explained why. I explained what I would have improved on, especially the delivery of this scene. And now I understand why this scene that I complained sucked. The reason it sucked is because the writers were more concerned talking about Roe v. Wade than they were concerned about making an immersive story. And it doesn't even make any fucking sense, right? Because they are selling as if there was a choice. Like, they keep selling the decision of the king whether or not to have a C-sec on his wife. They're selling it as if it was a conundrum, a moral choice. When even in the freaking script, even in the freaking show, the maester goes to the king and says sometimes during difficult childbirth, the father must make a decision. Save both or only save one of them. Which, according to their medical technology, there was no way of saving the woman. Like, the queen was dead at that point. The only choice for the king was whether he should try and save the baby or allow them both to die. That was the only choice available, okay? I don't see that as being even a choice that's presented. But for some reason, the showrunners, when they give interviews, they insist on making it that, oh, it's a choice. How is it a choice? And then they go on and they say, oh, well, this is about Roe v. Wade, because they made absolutely sure that they injected the line, the father gets to decide. And I'm like, okay, first of all, what the fuck does that have to do with Roe v. Wade? Like, at which point, like, even now, in which state in America, right now, does the father get to decide shit? Like, if a woman gets pregnant, she gets to choose whether or not she gets an abortion, and then the father can't do anything about it, right? Like, if she gets that choice, there's nothing the father can do. Or she gets to choose to keep the child, in which case, also, the father cannot do anything besides pay child support. So what reproductive rights do men have in the cisgender, heteronormative, highly patriarchal, capitalist United States of America? What is the exact reproductive right that men are having? And don't give me the shit that's like, oh, well, abortion is illegal. Fucking take a bus to another state, lady. Just take a bus to another state. Oh, well, the gas is too expensive. Well, maybe you should have voted for politicians, which made the gas cheaper, so the traveling to another state costs less. I am sick and tired of Americans whining and complaining about their abortion laws, which are far more permissible than in most places around the world. And Americans are the ones who want globalism. Well, if you want globalism, you're going to get the ideology from other places and water your culture down a little bit. Like here in Europe, most nations have abortion laws far more stricter than what is in the United States. And they're crying because this is not codified in their fucking constitution at a point where their founding fathers probably didn't even know what an abortion fucking is because they didn't have the technology to do it back then. But for some reason, you get this stuffed down your throat as a European when you're watching things like Game of Thrones. A story about a medieval society. Why the fuck would I get? And then it's like the father decides. Like, first of all, the way I assumed is that due to the fact that he is king, like we're talking about an absolute monarchy, right? Like he is the king, everyone else, including the queen, are his subjects. So yes, like the king gets to make whatever the fuck he wants. I mean, he is the one that orders other people to go to war. He is the one that can order other people to be in prison. Like, he can literally do whatever the fuck he wants. It's not a democracy, right? Like, we're talking about a king. So that is number one. Number two, most people wouldn't even benefit from medical treatment in medieval time. Like, the father decides, yeah, maybe like a couple of lords and a couple of like the most wealthy in society who have access to a maester. Yeah, sure. And it's probably because they're the ones paying for it. That's why. But yeah, so like none of this makes sense. Like it's so forced that this is American politics being forced into a show that's supposed to be for everyone around the world. Right? Now when I saw it, I was like, you know, maybe this is why the scene doesn't really work. Because they really try to hammer it in. It's like, yes, giving birth is torture. Giving birth is torture. Like that is the entire mantra of the first episode. And every single scene this lady is in is literally about that. To the point where the foreshadowing is thicker than Usagi-chan's tits. And when you finally get to the birth scene, you already expect it. There's absolutely no red wedding moment. There's no Ned Stark gets decapitated moment. Like that, there is no surprise, basically. Like you already expect it because the showrunners try to hype up this thing, which they're so fucking proud of, to the point where it made a bad scene. Like, had they waited one episode at least, try to build this character up, try to make her more relatable, try to get the fans to actually like her, and then have episode 2 where this happens, it would have been a much better choice. But instead, it's like, no, we need to push Roe v. Wade from episode 1. And this is what ended up transpiring. Right? So, it is what it is. But, what I do want is for people to start trusting me when I make the reviews. If I call something a spade, it's probably a fucking spade, okay? It's not my fault because I didn't pay that shit. It was already a spade when I found it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.